Hello fellow crafters, my name is Nicole and today I will be crocheting a textured infinity scarf. This is definitely a good beginner project as it uses two of the most common stitches in crochet. Although it looks complex, if you're familiar with a single crochet and a double crochet, then you will have no problem making this scarf. For this project, you will need a super fine yarn, such as a number 1 weight. On the label, you should see it marked as a box with a number 1 in it. I'm using Loops and Threads Woolite in the color Cool Gray. Each skein of the Loops and Threads Woolite has 678 yards, so if you are substituting yarn, make sure you get enough to finish. Also, for this project, I used 2 strands at once, so 2 skeins are necessary. You will also need a US L11 8mm crochet hook, a yarn needle, and a pair of scissors. You might also want to keep some stitch markers handy. Safety pins or paper clips will work just fine. To start, make a slip stitch and chain 140. Leave a generous amount of yarn for the tail, that way it will be long enough to use a yarn needle to weave in the ends. You can change the length if you would like to, just make sure you have a chain of multiples of 2 by the end. You will need an even number of chains for this pattern to work. To start the foundation row, skip 1 chain and in the second, make a single crochet. Then double crochet in the same chain space as the single crochet you just made. You have now completed the first stitch. Skip a chain, insert your hook into the next one, and repeat the single crochet and double crochet in the same chain space. Repeat this pattern, skipping a chain, and in the following, single crochet and double crochet all the way across to the end of your foundation chain. Turn your project to move on to the next row. To start the second row, chain 1, and in the space between the stitch groupings, continue the pattern of a single crochet and a double crochet all the way across to the end. As you can see, sometimes when using double-stranded superfine yarn like this, it will get twisted. In order to keep the stitches looking uniform, untwist it as you go. It is time-consuming, but it will pay off in the end. When figuring out width, I keep crocheting rows until I reach what looks good to me. For this scarf, I did 24 rows. I have found 24 rows to work well. It is a width that will flatter pretty much any figure. Keep going until you find a width that works for you. This pattern is completely customizable, so check as you go and it will be easy for you to choose your desired width. Once you have completed all your rows, make a chain and pull up the loop to secure them in place. Pull tightly so the chain closes, forming a knot of sorts. Take your scissors and cut the yarn, making sure to leave a tail long enough to sew the scarf ends together. If you don't leave a long enough tail, then you won't have enough yarn to sew the scarf together with. Having to attach a long enough piece of yarn for sewing is very time consuming, and leaving the tail long enough will allow you to skip a step. It is now time to weave in your ends and start sewing them together to finish the scarf. To sew the ends together, you will need to determine the wrong side from the right side of the scarf. You will be able to identify the right side as the side you crocheted from on the foundation row. Now that you have determined which is the right side, turn the scarf so that the wrong side is facing out. To weave the end from your beginning chain, thread the yarn through using your yarn needle. Go back and forth through stitches at random to make sure the ends are secured together. Once you feel you have sufficiently secured the ends, take your scissors and snip off any extra yarn you may have. Then, you will take the ends and face it towards you to make sewing the scarf together a little easier. When sewing, you will need to be careful not to get the seam too bunched together or too stretched out. This is where the stitch markers come in. To keep the scarf in place as you are sewing, insert a marker in the end without the tail. Make sure that the ends of the row match up so they can serve as a guide when you sew. Go in through the side furthest from you and do 2 stitches in each row, one at the top of the row and one in the middle of the row. Pull tightly so that the seam matches the width of the scarf. Do this all the way across to the end. If you match the rows correctly, you should not have any bunches on either side of the scarf ends. Turning to the right side, you will notice that the ends still have a little gap. Do one more stitch across the top of the scarf to secure it and make sure the gap disappears. Then go back along the entire seam to the other end, stitching randomly until you reach the beginning again. To make going back easier, turn the scarf over. Then do the same thing to the other side. To hide the tail and secure the scarf, thread it back through the seam. Continue down the length of the entire seam and back again. To make it extra secure, I usually weave the rest of the tail through some of the crochet stitches the same way as the first tail. Snip off the excess yarn and voila! Your textured infinity scarf is complete. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. This is the finished scarf. If you have any questions or you need clarification on anything, please leave a comment down below.